Hi everyone, Mr. Morgan Lewis at Family Martial Arts. In this video, rather than a lesson, what I'm going to do is share my views on running, which a lot of us actually do, especially now in the downtime with the quarantine that's active. But I'm just going to explain 3 principles that you should try to remember if you are one of those that actually go out regularly, a few times a week or whichever, and actually does running to keep you active. So pay attention as best you can to each part, and I'll explain as we go. Okay, so the first principle about running is you shouldn't do it as often as you might think. Now, what that means is versus going and doing running 5-6 times a week, that's not actually that good for you, purely because it doesn't matter whether it's long distance running or short distance. When you're outside doing lots of running, it does take its toll on your joints and your tendons. Now, you obviously have to stretch and you have to warm up, before and after every run you do, but you shouldn't do it more than a few times a week. Now, if long distance running is something that you take considerably to heart and you enjoy doing, then it's a different matter. But in terms of using it to help burn calories and keep your stamina and your respiratory system strong, you shouldn't really do it more than 3 times a week. And this is just my opinion. There's going to be lots of instructors and coaches that will say different things, and it all depends on the goals you're going for. But as a general rule of thumb, just for average running, just to keep you burning calories, to keep you working on your stamina, then obviously I wouldn't recommend more than a few times a week. If it's someone that's a professional fighter, for instance, they're more likely to end up doing that more than a few times, because obviously stamina is part of their a big part of their training. So it all depends on your goals. But for a standard approach, as in terms of doing it to keep you active during the lockdown, then a few times a week maximum. Okay, the second principle is how long you should do it for. Well, again, it depends. If you're training for a long distance run or a marathon, then of course the longer the better. But there are pros and cons to doing it for different lengths of time. In general, again, based on a standard run a few times a week, it shouldn't be longer than half an hour, 20 minutes really, because if you run for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, which people can do and people do fine, yes, you're going to burn calories, and yes, it's going to be hard work. But the trouble is, you very often get stuck with sticking to the same pace for a long period of time, and that's where it can result in injury. For instance, if you did something for long enough like that and you continued the pace, you put an awful lot of pressure and wear and tear on your joints, and over time that will obviously take effect. Whereas if you kept your workout a bit shorter but increased the intensity, then it makes a big difference. So for example, if you went out for a half an hour run and you didn't change the pace, you kept going at a nice regular pace, you're probably going to burn about 300 to 350 calories in that time. But if you decided to go and do 20 minutes worth, but you still wanted to burn the same amount of calories, then you can do that by simply including sprints and inclines. When I say inclines, I mean running up a hill. And what you can do is, for example, what I do is when I go for a run, I tend to, because I live down a hill, I have to walk up the hill first to sort of warm the legs up. And then what I do is I do elongated or different lengths of sprints between regular running. So what I'll do is I'll run normal for about 30 to 40 seconds, and then I'll sprint for 20, and so on and so forth, and things like that. If you come across a steep incline or a hill, that's also good. But what I'd recommend you do with that one is you really power yourself going up there as much as possible, and then come back down to get your breath back. And the reason inclines and sprints are so important is so that you engage more muscles. So by going up an incline and using sprints, what's actually happening is you're not relying just on your cardio as such, but you're relying on the oxygen that goes around your whole body. So your muscles in your quadriceps, your calves are really going to get pushed from all this extreme, pressure, I suppose, on your on the running that you're doing. So what's actually happening is your body is working harder, and therefore putting in more intensity, therefore putting in a greater burn on calories, but in a shorter amount of time. So instead of running for 45 minutes, you could easily do it in 20 minutes, but you just have to make sure that whilst you're doing it, you change the intensity as you go along. If you stick to one thing too long, then you will plateau and you will only get so far. But incorporate sprints and inclines as much as possible. So a workout that will only take 20 minutes, but you will feel a massive difference. All right, so that's the second principle. Okay, the third and final principle on the running aspect of this is make sure that when you finish a run that you do stretch. Otherwise, you will cramp up severely, okay? So in terms of what muscles to stretch, well, first of all, you should be stretching the quadricep muscles. You should stretch your calves, your hamstrings as well, and make sure you rotate your ankles and your knees as well. You've got to make sure that everything's mobile still once you finish, because if you don't stretch off, then of course that's what leads to muscle cramps throughout the day, and it stops it does a number on your motivation to keep you doing it. Another thing is, I mean, I'm not exactly 100% expert on diet, but when it comes to what to do in terms of before and after a run, you should, before you go for a run, at least half an hour beforehand, you should consume something, only a small food, for instance, like a banana would be good to get the slow release of energy going. Just something that to give you a little bit of a boost. Some people do it on an empty stomach. I mean, that all depends. Quite honestly, it depends on your how far you're going to push yourself. If you feel like you're going to do quite a harsh workout, then you need to make sure you've got some energy beforehand. Of course, when you have finished a workout in terms of what to eat, something with some protein in it, something to just get your energy levels back up again, and then it might be that you come back after your run and decide, okay, now I'm going to do the next part of my workout, in which case, fine, whatever that is. But in general, for running, it should be that you make sure you are energized before and after the workout, so that you feel the benefits from it. Okay, so this is just my opinion on how you should be using cardiovascular training like that in this downtime. And again, you're going to find different opinions everywhere, but this is just what I feel works for me, so find out if it works for you. Anyway, there'll be more fitness and training tips in future videos, but for now, take care of yourselves, and if you do go out running, remember to follow the principles as I said.